Okay. Hello and welcome back. We are once again going to do some world building with the Myriad skies. I hope that the audio levels are still fine. I should probably figure out like a standard way of doing that so that I know for sure that it's fine. But if it is not... okay. So previously we have been touching upon the various, some of the necessities of life. So there's the cultivated region, which is the cultivated nature, which is above. Okay. Okay. So let's see. What are the kind of things that a walking nest needs? Let's deal with that, I suppose. So first up, what kind of materials does it need? So it needs stuff for structure, which is stuff like for like bones, skin, yeah, all of that kind of stuff. Sinews, etc. Then you've got ones that are needed for energy. So that is to be able to do things, not dock. And then there's probably like stuff like, does it spell like that? Catalysts and enablers. So by that I mean, allow for other processes to happen. I'm really still getting used to writing with this tablet. Okay. So I think that those are generally the main types of resources that a walking nest will need. Okay, so energy is generally like the easiest to summarize, I guess. Like that is stuff like sugars, fats. This probably counts on the sugars, but I'm just gonna add it just because it's so significant. Apologies. Yeah. Now, the structures one is a bit more tricky, I imagine, or the structure ones. Get my terminology twisted up. So the structure stuff, That'll probably have to do with what kind of things that what kind of stuff is actually making up the walking nest. And I think mostly this can be kind of hand waved. In the sense that just varied diet. With a few specifics. I can always come back to that. Specifics. No, specifics. There we go. And catalysts and enablers are probably same as that. Right. Does this help me in any way? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. Okay. So we'll basically want to create a few types of processes. Okay. So these are basically the main resources that need to be acquired and need to be provided for. Now, how might some of these processes? So energy. Let's see. So the main source of energy coming into this yeah. Okay. Wait a moment. So I'll just zoom in here. It's gonna be completely lost, but who cares? So A7 has two sources of energy. So you've got light, like usable energy. So yeah, you've got light, which comes from above through rain. Yep. And basically water. Yeah, which means that water is a type of energy. This needs to be caught by photosynthesis. Why am I writing everything? Yeah, it's you get it through photosynthesis, and there's not really many other ways of harnessing it, I don't think. Although one of the benefits that A7 has is that it can actually use light can be stored. And because it can be stored, it can also be directly used for processes. I should just stop trying to write. It takes too long. Yeah, so it can be stored and then directly used for other types of photo sensitive processes. So that's actually something that can't be done, or doesn't really happen on Earth, I don't think. Generally, light can't really be captured. It can only be turned into other things, but a light emitting thing can be captured in this case, and so that light can be used in different processes. So yeah, you can have light basically. Yeah. So light can be a direct energy source, and it can be stored for later use. So there's a few ways that it can be exploited. Cool. The other energy source in A7 is, of course, magic. So magic is a more direct energy source because it can be turned into different types of energies, basically. And magic can make stuff happen, basically. Especially as if you can find a way of pressing it into the right shapes without expending more energy. But doing that is very specific. But then again, like the energy that you get from light is also specific. Like you need to actually convert it into other structures and such. So yeah. So you have light, which through photosynthesis gets turned into sugars. Which is a much more palatable energy source. I'm gonna add quotation marks to sugars because I'm not entirely sure if this would actually be sugars, but for all intents and purposes, it's sugars. It works vaguely the same. They're basically just structures which happen to be usable for as energy. Basically, yeah. Chemical or stored energy. That's basically what I mean by sugars. So yeah, light turns into sugars, which can then be eaten and used in biological processes. Cool. Magic probably can be like refined into forms of chemical energy as well. Yeah. Why am I doing quotation marks for that one? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think that's necessary. Which can then be also, yeah, which can then also be used in biology. Cool. I mean, I might as well. Nah, because they are separate processes. Can I redo that? Yes, I can. There we go. Cool. Okay. Let's see. So yeah. So that basically, like, these processes turning light into sugars is probably purely the domain of plants. So that I don't make everything huge. Magic. Let's add that actually as well. Direct use. Cool. Okay, so basically... No, I actually don't think that the walking nest will be directly capturing its own water necessarily for use in light. Although it might. But that seems like quite a dedicated process that would be best offloaded. So... store lights. For nest use. Okay. Magic can actually be used directly. Having other things store magic doesn't make a lot of sense. Oh, hello again, Arcphoenix. Do walking nests have emotions? Simple answer, yes. Because all of its member species tend to have emotions, I imagine. I think it would be very difficult to consider how those emotions would work. Like, they can of course feel distressed. They can feel, I suppose they can feel saddened about things. They can feel, yeah, stressed, happy and such. But generally, like, I think probably their most common emotion, at least in their mature life, would probably be contentness. Which is probably generally what they strive for. They're very long-lived creatures, which means that stability is basically what they strive for. So when things are stable, they're content and they're generally happy and such. Yeah, like they'll have emotions, but the emotions may work a bit differently from other beings. And actually, now that I think about it, it would be kind of complicated. Because basically the walking nest, its mind consists of the combined minds of all of its member species. So all of the emotional stuff that happens there in each of the individual member species would affect the general emotive state of the walking nest. Interesting question. Bit more complicated than I anticipated. The answer is yes, but I'm not sure how. In what way it would like show itself quite yet. Yeah. I think that is how I could best describe it. Okay. Cool. You may have missed a bit of what I was doing previously, so I will just recap quickly. So basically, I am continuing with figuring out how the cultivated land needs to be shaped, kind of. So I basically figured out Okay, sweet. All good. Then I don't need to recap anything. Let's see. Okay, so light is probably something that at least this specific walking nest will not be proficient at turning into useful stuff. Maybe specific like reactions need specifically light energy, in which case it will find stored light. So for example, I imagine that mostly it might primarily be plants that gather it, but there might be animals that gather specific types. Yeah, that might be useful, and then they... No, I think it's mostly plants. I think most of the resources for the walking nest will actually come from plants directly and not so much from animals. Yeah, so... plants are kind of refineries. And kind of like gatherers in a sense. Yeah. Whereas the role of animals, in the cultivated lands at least, falls more into the category of maintenance. Yeah. And basically maintenance and making sure that it keeps operating and can keep continuing and such. So I think that is basically the general roles of the organisms in the cultivated areas of A7. Now, direct use magic. So one of the things that I kind of imagined the walking nest to have, which is one of the physical characteristics that I may have sort of figured out, is basically that it has these long kind of like floating tendrils coming from it, like these branching tendrils. Which just kind of float around, almost like seaweed in water or something, but they're being kept afloat by negatists and basically anti-gravity stuff, or gravity ignoring stuff. Magics. And yeah, they basically act kind of as filters which capture basically any magic that they come through, that they kind of like fan through, and then bring it inwards towards a magic organ of the walking nest, whatever that might look like, where it can then use it for direct purposes. Now, it won't have all the capabilities of producing all of the refined forms, because those are some of those processes are probably really specific, and so some of the refined forms would need to be produced by plants. So yeah, that basically comes down to right. Is magic used as chemical energy? Maybe in some processes. I should probably keep this a little bit more abstract for now. Like I don't actually need to figure out the very, very specifics, like full on going into the biochemistry of it all. That's probably a bit too wild. But yeah, basically I just need to figure out a few, like I just need to create a few classes of plants and animals. So there is the category of photosynthesizers, or like let's be a bit more specific. Light to chem G. Cool. Specifically for the walking nest. So that's one category. Then there's the category of light capture. For the walking nest. Then there's one category for magic refinement. I'm just going to be general about that one. Little walking nest. Why I use a different end for that one, I'm not sure. There we go. Cool. So these are plant categories. Get out of the way. There we go. Plant categories. Light capture for walking nest. Magic refiners. Am I missing anything in the for the walking nest category? I guess. Then there's for like structural stuff. I could probably just say nutrients. Refiners. Or concentrators. I use way too big words for the walking nest. So let's see, I've got the light capture, light to chemical energy, light capture, magic refiners. Yeah, and then you've also got like light to chem for animals. Light to, oh wait, no. Light cap. Don't mind the spelling. It's just to get the idea across. Magic refiners for animal. And then there's the nutrient concentrators. For animal. Ah. Okay. So those are kind of the different categories of plants, and then the animals. Yeah. Okay. Then. Animal categories. So there, I imagine there is like reproduction helpers. So these are all animal things are basically for plants. Then you've got I guess some degree of pest removal. Fertilizer spreaders. Fertilizers. And balances. So let me explain in a bit. I cannot spell at the moment. Wow, that balances? Yeah. Apparently I can't spell at the moment because I'm thinking of several things at the same time and whatever. Okay, so the reproduction help. These are basically the kinds of animals that help the plants reproduce in the various stages of it. Be that helping with pollination, helping with the spreading of seeds or seed saplings. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So they basically allow different plants to mix genetic material and spread the seeds around. Pest removal, they are going to be... Actually, pest removal and balances are kind of the same thing, so let's ignore pest removal. Then there's the fertilizers in the bottom left. So fertilizers, basically all they do is they kind of eat things and then... Does that even work? I guess it's kind of... I don't. So currently I am thinking that... Maybe fertilizer isn't quite the right term. Wait a moment. Oh, maybe. So I guess fertilizers, kind of what they do is they kind of may take certain types of nutrients that are beneficial to plants, but are far too plentiful in one region and not too plentiful in another. So plentiful that some plants might actually have excess of it, or something like that. And so they'll eat it in one place, and then as they travel around the realm, the area, they will release droppings that will fertilize other areas. yeah, and keep nutrients basically rolling around. Actually, yeah, I'm just thinking to macro. No, like basically they make sure that the ground is fertile in one form or another. So that might mean like turning dead things into nutrients that plants can actually use and such, because plants do die and such, and they need, yeah. What balancers do is they kind of well, they just kind of live their lives eating whatever they eat, but by doing so, they naturally produce a certain balance in things. They basically make sure that the ecosystem doesn't become unbalanced by eating, by just eating whatever they are meant to eat. This might be where there's actually some carnivores. Yeah, balancers might actually contain carnivores to ensure that the other two animal forms don't become too plentiful. But yeah, their pure function is basically to cull the things that are too plentiful, that are threatening to unbalance the area. So yeah, fertilizers basically make sure that there's nutrients for the plants. Reproduction helpers make sure that there's that plants can reproduce and such, and balancers make sure that there's not too much. So I guess it's kind of like these ones help them get started. These ones help them, like reproductive helpers, help them get started. Fertilizers make sure that they stay alive, and balancers make sure that there aren't too many of them alive. Yeah, and I think that is a decent way of categorizing things, and I think that this might actually be helpful in getting me to make things. To like make plants and animals and that kind of stuff. So let's see. Light to chemical energy. Yeah, let's figure out some properties for them. I'll just write it in the middle, like some primary properties for them. So light to chemical energy ones, I imagine that they would be very keen on catching lots of light. Like prioritizing that, like basically prioritizing light over over getting nutrients. Almost without question, like fruits or other high energy stuff. Yeah, so they are the ones that will capture most of the light. Like they will be good at extracting as much light out of the rain as possible. Whereas light capture ones, so whereas they might not necessarily be as good at extracting all of the light out of things, they'll be good at capturing lots of water. They'll generally have big juicy fruits or other types of growths, but for now I'm just gonna any fruit, any part of a plant that can just be taken without the plant suffering from it. I'm just going to call that a fruit for now. Big, watery, and bright fruits. I think that is... they'll probably also generally be quite sturdy. Yeah, whereas these ones may have more of a flow of light through them. Like water. Whereas these ones are definitely more keen on capturing the water. Nutrient concentrators. They'll be less concerned with capturing as much light as possible. So less light focused. Focus. But stuff like extensive roots. Maybe potentially carnivorous. Some of them. They'll probably have harder fruits. Stuff like nuts and such might be more common. Or that kind of consistency. Magic refiners will have a large area. Probably non-optimal I'm gonna say greenery, but that's not entirely accurate because, well, of how things work. Like things don't look green in A7. But basically, like, they don't have an optimal coverage of like leaves and such. So like lots of empty branches. Which is for magic capture. They'll probably only grow in very specific places, I imagine, because they need the specific stuff to be able to actually manipulate and capture magic. So not widespread. Okay, these properties are going to be helpful, I imagine, because they allow me to narrow down on things a bit. And yeah, these are just, you know, the same as these ones most of the time, except for when it's stuff for the walking nest is generally bigger. And for animals is generally smaller. But also rarer and more plentiful. Because the walking nest, like it doesn't really come by all that often, whereas animals kind of just live everywhere. Yeah. Okay. Now for the animals. Okay, so the reproduction helpers, close relationship to plants. Let's with plants. Cool. Let's see. You know, I think symbiotic with plants is fine. Probably fructivorous. Or I don't know the term for it, but nectar eaters. Yeah, stuff like that. And because of that, they might also be a bit on the smaller side or something. I'm not too sure. Oh, and travel. Fertilizers tend to probably be scavengers. Would they be more sedentary? I'm not too sure about that one yet. But balancers would generally be specialized. Okay, the animal one's a bit trickier. But yeah, I think that that kind of gets the idea across, and I think that that actually helps making sense of things. So let's actually make sure that I can find this again. Categories. Because yeah, I think that is. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh well. If I can't find it, then so be it. I'll try and remember it. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, I think that like I'm just definitely managing to bite chunks off of this problem. It's quite a large problem, but I'm starting to make more sense of it in my head. Like how all of this is going to be organized and such and categorized, which should help me in creating species at some point. Which is needed to continue. Because the way that I do my world building, I kind of need to know what kind of stuff is around, what is available to the lore, especially, which depends on what is available to the walking nest. Yeah, that's fair. Currently, actually creating species is quite a daunting concept, because I feel like everything is interconnected in such a way that like starting at any given point is tricky. But this is definitely like narrowing stuff down. Like this, I've already got general characteristics behind different categories of plants, behind different purposes of plants. So I should hopefully actually be able to make species in these categories, or at least like clades or something like that. You know, like the kind of categories of species. And then, you know, have there be implied for more implied biodiversity than I'm creating, because I don't really want to have to make like several thousand different species. I mean, maybe if I ever commit a crime and get locked in jail, sure, I'll be, you know, I'll have all the time to figure out all of these individual species and whatnot. But right now, I've been kind of stuck on this early period for quite a while, and it's important that I do this right, because once I've got nature sorted out, then I can start going forward pretty smoothly, I think. I hope, at least. But yeah, this is just taking some time. And I'm kind of glad that I am now actually, like, this kind of stuff is one of the reasons why I've started this channel to begin with. So that I can just sit down, work these things out, and basically push myself to progress. Because, like, yeah, I do enjoy world building. But like anything that is enjoyable, sometimes there are going to be sort of like difficulties, and yeah, sometimes you just got to find ways of pushing past it. Don't get me wrong, I do tend to do that stuff as well. But for this, like, I also really like to have everything. I like it when the world creates itself, in a sense. Because then it's not just me coming up with stuff. Then it's me kind of exploring the world. So then it's, yeah, then I kind of get to explore my own world, and I won't get necessarily spoiled by, oh, I'm just making stuff up, I don't really care about this anymore, because that tends to be how I tend to be about things. Like, I need to experience new things in a setting. And so far, this seems to be working for me. Like, it is, yeah, as you say, it's very hardcore. I would not recommend this to other people, although I'm also not gonna, you know, say don't do it, because it is very interesting. But it's a lot of work, and like, I'm still quite a bit away from getting anything useful out of this. Like, I would not be able to turn this easily into something that I can use for other projects. Like, at the moment, there's too little to write stories about. Or like, there's not the right stuff to make stories about. But yeah, I'm getting there. But yeah, as you might have noticed, this is me kind of closing this one off. It doesn't really feel like I've made all that much progress, but I think that this is very meaningful progress. Yeah, and I do not tend to think about the story at all. My world building is very detached from stories. Stories will form on their own, and I will explore those, but I'm not making this world with the intent of making stories in it, or such. Like, I very well may. I probably will. But it's definitely not narrative first. It's definitely world first. Which is just how I like to world build. Yeah, like nothing wrong with either of these types of world building things. Yes, of course, it all depends on what you want to get out of it. But yeah, like I am kind of closing up this episode, I guess. I'm not sure if I should be calling them episodes because I don't pre-record these. Session, yes. That'll be it, I think, for this session. Thank you for being here, and for anyone who wasn't able to be here but is watching this later. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. And if not this one, then maybe you will enjoy one of the other videos that's already on the channel. Yes, thank you, and hopefully it'll be same time next week. I am trying to keep it at that, and we'll see how it goes. Anyway, it's been a pleasure.